Motion to approve them.
Okay, motion by Scott, supported by Tyler to approve the minutes for the August 19 meeting. All those in favor indicate by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed, same sign. Motion carried. Next item is allowance for general public comment. This is intended to be an opportunity for people that are here at the meeting that would want to speak to something that's not on the agenda this evening. Give you an opportunity up to 5 minutes to speak your piece. Is there anyone that would wish to take advantage of that? Seeing none, we'll move forward to the first agenda item. This is a public hearing. It's on the Northridge East preliminary area site plan amendment and associated rezone request. There's 4 properties on the overall site that are being proposed, that are not in the PUD zone right now, and we'll be considering that rezoning of those properties, and at the same time looking at a change to the site plan on the northern portion of the site along the 4-mile frontage. At this point, I will turn this over to Frank Wash, our Community Development Director, Assistant City Manager.
Good evening, everybody. Thanks for coming out tonight. I'm helping Cheryl on this one because there's over 20 years of land use history in this part of town that has seen some fairly significant change that you may not be aware of. So when we run into things like this, I'm going to expect Cheryl to walk in with 20 years of experience in this part of town. So to be fair to her, I wrote the staff report. Also wrote the final site plan report. Because there's a lot of moving parts out there that have been in play since the late 90s. And we're all starting to coalesce now on the water side of the fence on this former farmland. So where we're at in town, northwest part of the city, 4-mile Fruit Ridge, southeastern corner generally, specifically just south of Schott and 4-mile, across the street from the Pennsylvania School complex. At the northeast corner of Schott and 4-mile, there used to be a lot of trucking, which until recently was a fairly significant U.S. mail delivery service, and they have since moved to 84th Street. There was a trucking program that's there for decades. The high school was built in the late 90s, and that was former orchard. When that went in, it caused, as you expect, changes of drainage, challenges with public water, sanitary sewer, and a big change in traffic patterns too. So this part of town has been changing for a long time. And Walker, on our side of the fence, which is south of has been doing things as well. The Northridge development went in from Walker Avenue west, where it currently dead ends, at Ridgeview Stamping. And at the same time, thereabouts, Visser Brothers came in and built the first stub of Northridge off of Fruit Ridge, if you remember that, if you've been on the Planning Commission for a while. And there were several lots put in there. And then we had these 2 dead ends of Northridge pointing at each other. So in 2008, we looked at both ends of Northridge, this piece and then the east piece at Walker Avenue, and we did something called a precise plat, which put into ordinance the connection of Northridge from Walker Avenue all the way to 4-mile and Cordis, and then the connection of these 2 dead ends. So that somewhere down the road, in this case 12 years later, someone would come in and say, okay, I'm going to do something with that property, and the road requirement is in place. It's in ordinance. And we do that because if you're going to convert farmland to really any other use, you have to build public infrastructure. And public roads are a big part of that, obviously, along with drainage, public water, sanitary sewer. In this general area, there's a new water tank. You may see that on your aerial map. Just off to the east, Consumers Energy owns the property to the west of the tank. And again, those are infrastructure items that have been slowly evolving consistent with what your master plan has been. But what does the master plan say about this part of town? Well, if you recall, for the past couple of years, we've been working on this area and several others to refine the master plan. And the decision was made by the Planning Commission and the City Commission to move the future industrial or future business line to 4 Mile, consistent with what we'll get to on the presentation here in a little bit. So now the pieces are starting to come together. And the last piece of the puzzle that you may not be aware of is, I forgot how many years ago, but Scott and I worked with Irwin Seating to get a grant from the state to get the intersection of Northridge and Fruit Ridge ready for a traffic signal. It did everything except put the mast arms and the signals in, but it's ready for it. We didn't meet the warrants at that time. But it's ready and it's going to be needed now. So, over 20 years, this tail has been building on this property and in this general area. And now our challenge as a city is, and also with Kent County, because Kent County owns 4 Mile Road, is to put these infrastructure pieces in place. And this is really a mirror example of what we did on the east side of Walker Avenue. Because we know, if you remember the 4 Mile study we did with Kent County years ago, the intersection of Walker and 4 Mile is pretty much impossible to fix to modern standards. Whole bunch of limitations there. And so what we've tried to do with Shippers Drive at FedEx and Hendershot here is build alternatives so that people can move around, hopefully to traffic signals, and not have to keep hitting an intersection that we know is just not equipped for 10,000 cars a day. So that's kind of the big preamble to all of this. What the applicant, and I see the applicants here, so I'm going to let them do the majority of the talking. What the applicants are asking for are 2 things, and you already brought these up, right? Amend the preliminary area site plan for Northridge East IPUD. As part of that, add some more area to the IPUD. 3 parcels of record and 1 piece that used to be a parcel of record but was combined into the 131-acre parent property, if you want to call it that, of this industrial PUD. So if you put all those together, it's about 138 acres. So it's a big footprint, you know? And when we do big footprints, you've got to get it right from the beginning. So that's what we're going to do. This is step 1, really, of actual planning and construction. And let's talk about construction for a second. If you took a ride out there, you can see that Northridge is quickly becoming a real road. There's 2 projects out there. The city is building the westerly half. Visser Brothers is building the easterly half. Grading around that is going in. So that Northridge Drive connection, as precisely platted, is becoming reality. Now we've got some work to do on the side streets, in particular Hendershot with this application. Okay? So that's where you're at. Your job as a planning commission is to review the PASP. Yes, Patrick.
Jason just said there's no sound on the system.
I'm on it.
Okay, good. Just got an email on this. Everybody online is not hearing it.
Okay.
I think I fixed it.
Tricia's going to troubleshoot that. And it may be, if it's still not working, are your mics lighting up there? Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
I think it was the microphone. I was connected to the wrong audio.
Okay.
So I'll check with him to see if it's back.
Okay. So here's where you're at. The PUD, the plans, the PASP in this case, is under the review of the Planning Commission. You folks say yes, no, or maybe. If you say maybe to table, we need a list for the developer to follow up on. Okay. The rezonings, you make a recommendation to the City Commission, just like with every other rezoning in the city. Amendments to PUDs and then rezonings are both required to have a public hearing by state of Michigan law. So we've done those notifications. And this is a public hearing review. So that's a long way of saying, let's look at a few slides and then I'll get out of the way and look at the plans. Tricia, why don't we hit next slide here?
I gave you the mouse in case you want.
There we go. Okay, this part of town, historically open farmland, but in the city, okay? And like we've been talking about, you sound like I'm in a cave.
Sorry.
Shh, you want? I kind of like it. It's like a Tool concert.
There we go.
There we go. Okay, so we know that this part of town, can we get back to that second slide? There we go. Okay, you got two general colors on the map, right? On the Walker side of the fence, you've got gray and you've got green. The green is agricultural and the gray is industrial. And then you can see through that map, there's an awful lot of open land there. The properties that we're dealing with are highlighted in blue, the parcel lines. And then I threw those red stars on there just to show the area or the lots that are asking to be rezoned from green, which is agricultural, to gray, which is IPUD. So those are the existing parcels and the existing zoning. Okay, let's go to the next one. Now, we've been working on this master plan, and thankfully it's almost done. We went through the big exercise last week, and we made what I thought was some really good progress in a couple of hours. So our goal is to get that thing adopted, have it fully adopted by Thanksgiving. And I think we can do that. Now, what we have working in the draft 2020 master plan is all of these lots, and you can see the little yellow ellipse in the above gray IPUD. Those are generally the properties that are asking to be rezoned. They're all master plan gray, which is IPUD, business in our terminology in the master plan. But we drew a line on the property that butts up against the water tank and the single-family home. And we also drew a line at the power lines that are fee-owned by consumers running north-south. So you've got your master plan is IPUD, essentially. Okay, next slide. Here's the original preliminary area site plan. And the reason we're here today is it's changed. We expect that, you know. Even the precise plat changes. You put something in place, and then a long time later, things are going to need to be shifted around. That's why we have a formal process for amendments. So I wanted to include this to see where you've been. The Northridge connection was always there, but the part of the property that we're dealing with now was in phase 3. So it's phasing is switched, buildings have changed, etc., triggering the PASP amendment. All right, I think this is the last one. Here's the big one, and this is where I'm going to get out of the way. We've already talked about a lot of this, but this is what it looks like in graphic form. East side of the map is Walker Avenue from 96 really to 4 Mile. West side is Fruit Ridge from 4 Mile to 96. And right in the middle, you see that red dashed line, which is Northridge Drive. And then there is a yellow dash, which is Hendershot, extended up to 4 Mile at the signal. And then someday there will be South Industrial Drive that'll cross the tracks and then go against 96. So we're trying to lay out a comprehensive, at least major street plan here, and the signalization, so you can spread the traffic load here. And this is the first step. So I will yield to whoever you want to bring up, Mr. Connors or the applicants, and we'll go from there.
Thanks, Frank. Any questions for Frank at this point? Okay, Scott, city engineer, please.
Sure. Frank showed you the original PASP and that layout, and then also the proposed PASP. And I guess the first step here is to tell you that we've already adjusted all the stuff that's underground to be able to fit either option. So these things, you know, it's a moving target, as Frank said. So when the developer comes to you in the middle of a project like this and says we want to do a major change, I think our answer was we can handle a lot of the underground stuff ourselves at staff, but when it comes to changing road alignments, it'd be a little bit rogue for us to be out there just making dramatic changes without having the planning commission involved. So the good news is that we're set up to do whichever option you prefer. If you say, hey, we don't like this option, we want to go back to what was originally approved, we can do that. If you say we like what these guys have proposed here, we can make that fit as well. So to get into some real site plan review comments or PASP comments, we've got a list there of a couple, mostly minor stuff. We want to make sure that East Valley Drive, which is really going to be a Hendershot extended, has the new Hendershot name. That's a really good police and fire thing. wayfinding. You know, we want to make sure that we don't have an intersection with two different street names on either side of the road. You also see something in there that we don't typically encourage, which is a 90-degree bend in the road. So we're going to require that, or ask that you allow for some special attention there, so that we have some reasonable accommodations to make sure that we get a decent design speed, decent advisory signage, and those kinds of things, because you know that can get a little bit delicate in terms of the final design, which would still have to be worked out. There's also a note in there that defers the sidewalk along the north side of Lot 8, which we'll see later, and defers that into Phase 2. We certainly don't agree to that, because you know we want to see the sidewalk done when the lot's developed. If they come back 2 years later and do it, it's inefficient. It's hard to enforce. There's usually debates and arguments. We just want to make sure that gets done. It doesn't have to be done first thing, but certainly before that lot's done, and we can really clean that up, I think, when that Lot 8 does come in for final area site plan. There's 86 feet of right-of-way proposed for Hendershot. We want to make sure that's secured as part of this PASP amendment. We don't want to approve something that can't be achieved. There's also, if you remember from the last time, a cost-sharing agreement for the traffic signal at Northridge and Fruit Ridge, which Frank mentioned. I would say that we should move ahead with the idea that we're still going to be consistent and valid with those conditions from last time. Nothing here has really changed other than maybe how the traffic's going to be handled. It's still going to reach a peak that's going to require that signal to go in. And then the railroad crossing to the south, which we didn't have this in place the last time around, but with the crossing that's called Phase 2, the developer has some aggressive plans to get that moving, so they provided us with an escrow, and we've been working on getting that approval from MDOT, from Rail Safety, and then also going to have to work with Coopersville Marne Railroad to get that crossing approved, but that process is already in the works, so we can feel pretty good that that's underway at least and should be ready for next time around. And the details, obviously, of Hendershot and what that road's going to look like and how that's going to come together still have to be worked out a little bit. I think the drawing shows kind of an assumption about water and sewer. We'd like to try to limit the public water and sewer that's needed there, to limit the cost for the developer and for anybody else involved. But we still have to work out some of those details, and if you could defer that to staff level, then we could certainly take care of that. A lot of that will be with Grand Rapids to make sure that we're planning for the future, so that if the Grover property to the east is ready to develop, we don't have to tear up the road and go into that to tap into water and sewer. We want that to be outside of the road, ready to go. So that's a summary from engineering.
Scott, is there any reason that the westerly drives for Lot 8 and Lot 7 are not aligned with one another?
I would have to go back and see. Is Lot 7 the one at the
Yeah, it's
pie-shaped
the far left.
Yeah.
Of the
I think the way that this Lot 8 is going to come together, we'll know more in 2 weeks, I think, is a good answer, as we start to discuss the logistics and the transportation.
It just seemed like an
patterns
odd choice to me.
Yeah. You know, I would rather see those lined up. I think we might have a better chance to clean it up when we look at Lot 7
Yep.
in the future. But we'll be able to talk about that a little bit more later. And as Frank said, these PASPs, they're ever changing.
Yeah.
You know, and when we see a big change, we want to talk to you about it. If it's something minor that we can make an improvement, we'll do that every time.
Any other comments, questions? Scott, thank you. At this point, we'll turn the floor over to the applicant. You can identify yourself at the podium, please.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name's Kyle Schott. I'm with Ryan Companies. We are the lead developer on this proposed project happening here on 4 Mile Road. With me tonight is Josh Mannion with Progressive A&E, representing our architecture and engineering firm. Greg Bohl with Visser Development, who is the land seller to us. And then on the line we have Shannon Midgley, Brian Krajniak, and I believe Kyle DiGiulio with our tenant. What we're proposing with this rezone and preliminary site plan approval is roughly 112,000 square foot distribution / delivery station with approximately 1,200 parking stalls, 200 dedicated to associate parking, and about 1,000 dedicated to delivery vans and the like. In addition to that, we are showing a connection from 4 Mile Road to Northridge Road via a Hendershot connection. The group here has agreed on how we'll tackle that, but understanding that that traffic is a concern, we are offering that up as part of our development here. So that's a very high level introduction to the project. We're here to answer any questions regarding the development, whether that be the development itself, the operations, the traffic, or any of the engineering. We're prepared to answer any questions regarding that.
Thank you, Kyle.
Yep.
As far as the comments that are offered by Mr. Wash and Mr. Connors, do you have any, are you in agreement with what they're recommending at this point?
Yes, I am.
Okay.
Yep.
All right. If, at this point, we will open the public hearing and take a motion to do so.
I'll make a motion to open the public hearing.
Motion by Tyler, supported by Steve. All those in favor indicate by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed, same sign. Motion carried. Anyone that would wish to come forward and offer commentary?
Wow, controversial.
Make a motion to close the public hearing.
Support.
Motion by Steve, supported by Tyler to close the public hearing. All those in favor indicate by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed, same sign. Motion carried. Well, we've got two actions here, the rezoning as well as a preliminary site plan. Any thoughts as far as the rezoning goes?
I'll offer some feedback overall. I would just say that I think initially when this had come in, we had talked about wanting that connection to Hendershot as a secondary. And seeing that now reflected on the site plan is, I think, a huge improvement for us. So I think largely I'm in favor of everything we're looking at. I think it's a huge benefit to us to make that secondary connection for what will be hopefully a lot of traffic, a lot of businesses, a lot of people. So
I would agree with Steve on that. I'm friends with the people that own the lots right at Hendershot, and they're devastated, of course. Well, no, they're not. But they're giving up a lot. I was really surprised, and I know, for progress, but they're finding another house and everything. And I think that Hendershot connection is it. I mean, that convinces me that this needs to go through now, so.
If I may offer a question for the applicants, in terms of traffic circulation, could you characterize in terms of the product coming into the property, employees coming into the property, product going out, how that will be accomplished?
So regarding traffic, you can see from the plan that there's definitely a segregation between car traffic and what we're calling van and truck traffic, and that's done with intent. Our associates are going to be parking, I guess, go northeast. There's a parking lot just north of the building that's going to be the associate parking, meaning the folks that are going to be working within the building itself. They are going to be coming in through Hendershot. Now, vans and truck traffic, we have connections to Northridge Road, and the intention there is to use Northridge specifically for our van and truck traffic. Now, the associates will be coming in at a normal, I believe around 8 a.m. In the day, and that's going to fluctuate. Associates are going to come and go throughout the day. Now, most of the van traffic is going to be after peak times, meaning there's going to be phasing in the van traffic coming out, and that's going to happen 9, 10 a.m., closer to 10 a.m. is when those folks will be coming in, leaving initially with that first phase, and then coming back from their routes around 8 to 9 p.m. So specifically missing those peak times. Now the truck traffic, we expect around 20 trucks per evening, and that traffic will be happening between 11 p.m. and 6 a.m. So we've maneuvered the traffic and operations for this facility, which will be a 24-hour facility, meaning that someone will be present at the site 24 hours a day, but we'll be working within the confines of that traffic pattern that I've shared. Does that clarify that?
Yeah, so will you have multiple shifts for the associates?
For the associates, yes. And I'll open it up. If Kyle DeJulio is on the line, do you want to add any additional information regarding shift work, Kyle?
Yes, for sure. Yeah, for sure. And thanks everyone for letting me join virtually. So typically there are 4 shifts at this location. So it's a 24-hour facility, as we mentioned. Actually, one of the larger shifts is actually the overnight shift, and that's the shift where the line haul trucks would be arriving, the 20 trucks that were mentioned, and unloading and sortation of those packages from those trucks for delivery zip codes the next morning when the vans leave, generally around 10 a.m.
Very good, thank you.
Yep. Any additional questions?
Frank, is this all one motion?
I put the model motion together where the rezoning motion was part of the PASP. I don't think there's anything wrong with that.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure.
Sometimes, it depends who you ask, which attorney you ask. And sometimes they say separate them. This one, it just seems to make sense because they fit right together. It'll help the city commission understand what's going on.
Okay. I'll make a motion for case number 20-869, motion for delivery station Visser DEG IPUD rezoning and preliminary site plan amendment. I make a motion to approve the proposed amendments to the Northridge East IPUD preliminary site plan based on the site plan set and supporting materials provided by the applicant for Planning Commission review on 9/2/2020. Included in this motion is a recommendation of the Walker City Commission to approve the proposed rezoning of 4 existing lots and parts of lots as follows: 3360 4 Mile Road, 3220 4 Mile Road, 3194 4 Mile Road, northwest part of 3384-4 Mile Road from agricultural to IPUD. Conditions of Phase 1 final area site plan approval. Developer agrees to all conditions noted in the City Community Development Director's staff report dated 8/26/2020, except as modified by the Planning Commission. Number 2, developer agrees to all conditions noted in the City Engineer's staff report dated 8/24/2020. Findings of fact. The preliminary site plan amendments for the parcel delivery station warehouse proposed by Visser DEG and Ryan Companies. The proposed development conforms to the city's master plan. The proposed development conforms to the intent and to all regulations and standards of the Walker zoning ordinance as applicable. The proposed development will be served by public facilities and services such as highways, streets, police and fire protection, drainage courses, water and sanitary sewer facilities, refuse disposal, or that the persons or agencies responsible for the proposed development shall be able to provide in a manner acceptable to the Planning Commission any such facilities and services. The location of the proposed uses, layout of the site, and its relation to streets giving access to it shall be such that traffic to, from, and within the site and assembly of persons in connection therewith will not be hazardous or inconvenience to the project or the surrounding area. In applying this standard, the Planning Commission shall consider, among other things, convenient routes for pedestrian traffic, particularly for children, relationship of the proposed project to main thoroughfares and street intersections, and the general character and intensity of the existing and potential development of the surrounding area. Streets will follow topography, be properly spaced, and be located and aligned in accordance with the intended function of each street. The project will have adequate access to public streets, so the plans do provide for logical extension of public streets and do provide suitable street connections to adjacent parcels where applicable. The project is proposed for construction in phases. The planning and designing will be such that upon completion, each phase will be capable of standing on its own in terms of presence of services, facilities, and open spaces, and will contain the necessary components to ensure protection of natural resources and the health, safety, and welfare of the users of the planned unit development and the residents of the surrounding area.
Here, I have a typo in the allowed motion. Top of that page 2, where it says condition of phase 1 final area site plan approval, it should read conditions of preliminary area site plan approval. That's my mistake.
I'll change that to conditions of preliminary area site plan approval.
Okay, we have a motion on the floor. Is there support?
Support.
Support by Steve. Any other discussion? There being none, all those in favor indicate by saying aye. 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 Those opposed, same sign. Motion carried. Thank you very much. Look forward to the project moving forward. The next item on the agenda is another public hearing. In this case, it's a final area site plan review of the Chick-Fil-A proposed at 320 Wilson Avenue Northwest. And Progressive AE will be making the presentation. I turn the floor over to Tricia Anderson, our Planning Director, Zoning Administrator.
Hi. So I've got a lot of technology going on right now, and I'm trying to share my screen, and I can't find my PowerPoint. All right, let me try that again. Okay. So we have an application for final area site plan approval for Chick-Fil-A, which is proposed for lot C2 of the Westtown PUD, which you all should be pretty familiar with at this point. Just the request and property overview. So again, you're being asked to provide a site plan approval or denial or tabling of the request or approval with conditions for a 4,988 square foot building with a double drive-through and related site improvements for a Chick-Fil-A restaurant. The property address is currently 320 Wilson Avenue. For a long time it was 330 Wilson Avenue, and I expect that it will change to 356 Wilson Avenue by the time all these sites are built out. But for now we're going with the address that the county shows on the map. And this piece is 1.59 acres, and it is zoned commercial PUD. It's part of the Westtown commercial PUD. The master plan calls for mixed use in both the 1998 plan that's in place and then also the draft of the 2020 master plan. So we've got some consistency there. It's the southeast corner of Lake Michigan Drive and Wilson Avenue. And Cheryl Scales is here on behalf of the owner of the property, Todd Grassman, and she's speaking on behalf of Chick-fil-A, and Justin Lurk is their representative. So a little bit of background on Chick-fil-A. They're a chain restaurant. They have kind of a cult following. And they've got roots in Georgia, and they first opened their store in 1967. I'm sure Justin is going to weigh in with a lot more Chick-fil-A related details. Currently, there are 4 existing Chick-fil-A restaurants in the greater Grand Rapids area. There's one out in Holland, and the rest are located sort of southeast of Grand Rapids. And the subject site where the new Chick-fil-A is being proposed is the site of the former German village, which I'm sure you all have great memories there. So this slide highlights the entire Westtown PUD. Again, this is proposed on Lot C2. They're on the corner of Lake Michigan Drive and Wilson Avenue. Here's the site plan itself. As you can see, most of the site is proposed to be sort of paved over, and then you have a tiny little building there on the site, only just under 5,000 square feet. So I'm going to go through some of the highlights of my staff report. The biggest thing that we have to discuss tonight is regarding the site circulation and parking here on the site. I'll start with parking because the traffic circulation is probably going to be the bigger thing that we talk about. So the site is pretty tight as it is. It's not a huge site, but they're trying to kind of squeeze everything in here, and it's next to impossible for them to meet the 77 space requirement that the parking chapter prescribes. So they're proposing 70 spaces. Since this is part of a PUD, the applicant is asking that this reduction in the number of parking spaces be approved under a PUD benefit. As you know, planned unit development districts allow for a little bit of flexibility with things like parking, signage, and that kind of stuff. So onto the circulation. The current design of the site, so let me back up. For the first plan that we saw for this site showed car stacking in the drive-through for up to 50 cars. So it showed both lanes of the double drive-through with cars, and you can see this blue area here that's highlighted on the site plan. Technically, that whole entire space can be filled with cars, even if people wanted to go to Chick-fil-A at the same moment. And so we expressed our concerns about not having a bypass lane or not having an area to sort of escape the drive-through once you're committed and you're within the curb up in the northeast corner of the site. So once you're in the drive-through, you're kind of locked in. And so when the site plan was revised, the applicant showed that one lane is being utilized or can be utilized as a bypass lane. And so I spoke with Justin Lurk, who represents Chick-fil-A today a little bit while we were emailing. And he explained that it really will be up to the franchise owners in terms of what they will do with that second lane. So if they will maybe open it, have 2 lanes during the peak hours, and then close down one of the lanes and have it be a bypass lane during non-peak hours. It could be whatever the franchise owner designates that second lane to be. But I think it's important to understand that at any time they wanted to, they could have both lanes fully stacked with cars, because apparently people really like Chick-Fil-A. So right now the drive-through lane is showing a stacking of 32 cars, but in reality it could hold 50. In terms of access of the site, people who want to come to Chick-fil-A can enter off Lake Michigan Drive in that northwest or northeast corner of the site, and it's to the east of the C1 site, the C1 lot in the Westtown PUD. So there's a shared service drive that can be accessed there, and then drivers would go around the little traffic circle, the mini traffic circle, and then up into the site. They can also access the site from Wilson Avenue, where there's another approach for that shared service drive that accesses the entire Westtown PUD. So as far as signage goes, the applicant is requesting 2 monument signs. And then again, as a PUD, providing a little bit more flexibility, the applicant is asking for the additional monument sign to be included as a PUD benefit. They've also proposed wall signage on all 4 walls. And I think if they're going to have signage on 2 walls, that would be appropriate, because they do have frontage on the service drive and they do have frontage on, Wilson. Well, they technically, yes, they do have frontage on Lake Michigan Drive too. But I'm recommending that they're allowed to have 2 wall signs. So if they want to have wall signage on the frontage that faces Lake Michigan Drive and the one that faces Wilson, they could do that, or if they choose to have the service drive, they could do that too. So that's added as a recommended condition of approval. And then as far as landscaping goes, they provided a landscape plan that's acceptable. They have a lot of areas within the parking lot that are shown to be landscaped, and that's going to be beneficial because it's mostly paved. The entire site is mostly paved. And then the biggest thing in terms of landscaping with this site is you've got, we're that little cornerstone of the entrance to the Standale Downtown District. And so we want to make sure that that little plaza area is landscaped nicely. And so the DDA has funding to be able to install some annuals. And so we will kind of encourage that. But the Chick-fil-A folks will be building the brick paved area for that little plaza area. And then we will be asking DDA to chip in to install and maintain the other landscaping. With regard to the site landscaping, because of the timing of whenever, if the project is approved and the building permit is issued, it might be that they're wrapping up construction in like March or sometime where it's not conducive for planting. And so if that is the case, then we will have the applicant provide a performance bond or a financial guarantee so that we can ensure the quality, the completion of the landscaping in accordance with the approved landscape plan. And so we also show on the landscape plan that there's along the frontages, there's instead of a species name being called out, it just says compact ornamental shade tree. And so we'd like to work with the applicant to make sure that the species that's selected for the frontage areas is acceptable to staff and the DDA. And so I'm recommending that the applicant work with community development staff to submit a revised landscape plan that reflects all the things that we just talked about prior to the issuance of a building permit. And so the recommendation, I'm recommending if the planning commission, after some discussion, you're gonna decide whether or not you feel comfortable with the lack of a bypass or an escape lane in the drive-through. If you are comfortable with not having a designated lane outside of the additional lane for the double drive-through, I'm recommending that you approve the site plan subject to the following conditions. So that number one is that the applicant shall submit a revised sign package that includes 2 wall signs instead of 4, and incorporate the additional one wall sign in the PUD benefit statement on the cover page prior to the issuance of a building permit. And the applicant shall work with the city of Walker to select tree species along Wilson Avenue and Lake Michigan Drive, as well as submit a revised landscape plan prior to the issuance of a building permit. The applicant may be required to provide a performance bond to ensure the quality completion of landscaping installation if the timing of the request for building occupancy falls within a time that's not conducive to planting. And the applicant shall work with the engineering department to address concerns outlined in the city engineer's report dated 8/25/2020, which he will elaborate on in a minute here. And then you're going to hear from the applicant in a couple minutes, because yesterday Justin provided me with an updated architectural plan that showed a few differences. I didn't want to throw that in front of you because I didn't want to create any confusion, but I'm going to let him present a different facade drawing. And the biggest thing that he's going to show on there is that instead of a window for pickup, there will be a door for employees to leave the building to go out to deliver food to the cars. So I'm going to let him explain that. But if you do end up approving the site plan, I would like to add another condition of approval that was not included in my staff report. And that is that the applicant shall work with community development staff to submit an acceptable set of architectural renderings and building facade design prior to the issuance of a building permit. So, that is all I have.
Very good, thank you, Cheryl. Tricia?
Question.
And,
Question.
Yes.
You made a comment about parking spaces. Did you say 70? Or what was the amount that was what they said they were gonna put in there, but we required like 75?
The parking chapter requires 77 spaces based on the usable floor area, which I'm sure you're really familiar with at this point.
Right, yeah.
And the applicant is providing 70 spaces.
Because I was looking at the plan here and I didn't count 70 on this.
Oh,
I was just looking, I'm counting them all, including the ones that are diagonally, that are next to the drive-through lanes. I didn't get up to 70.
okay.
I included the handicap ones too, but anyways, just checking that. And the only reason I bring that up is because I've been to a couple of other Chick-Fil-A's in the area, and I've actually never been able to park in the parking lot. I've actually had to park in other stores' parking lots in order to go into the restaurant anytime between 11:30 and 1:30. So that's why I'm wondering, if we don't have enough
Interesting.
parking spots, they're gonna be parking on the street along that way or wherever. They're gonna be finding spots. So that's why I want to make sure we have enough parking spots in there, because as we all know, Chick-fil-A is popular. So
Yeah.
that's why I didn't count 70, but
We can have Cheryl weigh in on that.
okay. Then the other thing that I did have, and it's kind of more for Scott, is that if we're going to have an exit out from Chick-fil-A's parking lot to the new corner there, how are we going to make sure that that's safe with two drive-through lanes going through there, and making sure people that are going to come off of Lake Michigan and Wilson through that area? Just a question. Just want to make sure it's safe. That's all.
any other comments or questions for Tricia? Thanks, Tricia. Turn it over to Scott Connors, our city engineer.
So they've worked through most of the items that we've had throughout this process. We've been talking about this plan for an awful long time, and I think we started out with a whole page of bullet points, and we're kind of down to just a handful, so that's a good thing. You've heard me drone on and on about the detention area within this development is actually within a designated wetland, so it's critically important for each one of these lot owners to know that they have to do some things to provide regular maintenance to their stormwater controls. They can't just discharge all of their stormwater into that pond, you know, and one of the debates that we've had here was originally they wanted to have a hose bib out by the dumpster so that they could rinse that out every day, which would make it look clean and sparkly, but would wash bad stuff into the system every day, and so we've had to kind of debate through that, and they've agreed to not put the hose bib out there. We know that that stuff's still going to get downstream, so cleaning out the downstream manholes, in this case it's going to be kind of like a mechanical swirl device, needs to be listed on the plan, and we'll work through that in subsequent steps here at staff level. But it's an important thing for the owner to understand, to know that they have an obligation to be out there every 6 months or every 12 months or whatever that is. Next up is simply just talking about traffic for the development. If you remember back in October of 2019, there was a revised PASP for this for Westtown Phase 2, and I think we went from 1 drive-through to 3 or 4 drive-throughs when you looked at the various lots. And the developer's traffic engineer put together a study that said, don't worry, it's actually going to be less traffic, which intuitively we all said, that's crazy. How could it be less traffic? It's all drive-throughs. But the way that the numbers had worked out, there would be a slight reduction in the peak hour volume, but behind the scenes, you would see that there's still higher volumes at the site access points. And so I just want to remind you that, you know, some of these changes that we're talking about here with all the drive-throughs and the heavy in and out action is going to create some more snarls, and I gave you a couple specifics there about delays because I thought it was a nice way to look at it. So if for the eastbound left turn lanes at the entrance to Blaine and Meyer, which is across from Westtown, for that left turn movement, you'll see an increase from 66 seconds to 80 seconds, just to put that in perspective. The northbound lanes for Wilson that are left turns going into Blaine's and Meyer, you'd think, well, why is that impacted? It's impacted because there's just more general traffic and activity and turning movements there, and that's an increase as well. So that's just kind of so we all go in with our eyes wide open on that. And the last item we have is, and I should check this, the staff around here is pretty mad at me for bringing this up because they all love biscuits and they all love chicken, and you know I do too. But as we look at the absence of a bypass lane for the drive-through, you know, we just want to make sure that we're being honest and upfront about that. With all the drive-throughs in the city, we've striven for a bypass lane, and talking to Tyler about this a couple weeks ago, he reminded me of the Taco Bell that went in at Alpine and Center Drive, and at the very end they finally agreed, put the drive-through in, made us all feel a whole lot better. I think there's a trend with some of these new Chick-Fil-A's where they would prefer to get you into that drive-through lane and have you kind of captured and captivated where you can't change your mind. And so that's reflected in Kentwood, it's reflected in Caledonia, it's reflected in Wyoming. And I've talked to all my fellow city engineers about it, and we all have the same opinion, which is we absolutely should have bypasses, but we don't have anything that we can point to that says it's a requirement, other than the fact that from a public safety perspective we would prefer it. And so that's exactly where I stand. We would prefer to have it. We've asked for it every step of the way. If I was Chick-fil-A and I had this captive audience, I'd probably prefer to keep everybody in line no matter what, you know. And as Tricia pointed out, the line could be as long as 50 people. So even a quick drive-through with 30-second intervals, that's still quite a long time. If you have screaming kids, you're late for a meeting, overheating car, any number of things could happen. So again, go into that with your eyes wide open as you kind of discuss it and debate it, and make your determination.
Any other comment?
Just a comment on Scott's comment, 30-second drive-in or drive-through. I haven't been at one that's even close to 30 seconds in quite a while, so I think you're being very generous there. Scott.
10 in the morning, you might get through 36 minutes, because nobody sits after breakfast before lunch.
Tricia, can you let Justin in on the Zoom meeting? Sorry, I'm not sure if you're ready or not for me yet.
No, he's been patiently waiting.
Can you hear us, Justin?
He's muted.
Maybe while we're waiting, Patrick, you asked a question I didn't really answer because I was going to go through my
Oh, sure.
presentation. And the answer to that is, how do we ensure that it's going to be safe access when this place is, let's say the first 6 months, it's just crazy busy. And
Right.
we can't, right? The one nice thing about this site is that all of the access, for the most part, is internal. But you still have to get to the internal network, so those other driveways are still going to be busier. And that's really what the traffic study spoke to, was that those access points are going to be busier. And, this is a vibrant, busy area, and that's why they want to be there. So we have to decide if that's something that we still want to push towards. And we got a lot of undeveloped property on the west side of Wilson as well that we're going to be looking at in the future. And, all those things are going to bring more traffic, more delay, level of service reductions, but they're going to bring things that people value to the area.
You sound like a politician. Okay.
Well, I'd like to make a comment about all this, we like to see all this, but look at Alpine Avenue. That was a golf course and vacant land, and that's what all this commercial brings to you. So let's go into it with our eyes open as well, that, everybody loves Chick-Fil-A, and when there's 55 cars sitting in line, that's a lot of traffic they have there, but.
Yeah, I would say to that, though, that this is a much better method of access management than what we've done on Alpine Avenue, because we're directing all of that traffic to the site, overall site access points, and not directly into the individual sites. So we're pushing it out to the traffic light to the south and through that roundabout over to the northeast, right?
Well, not to continue this debate, because we'll never agree on this here, but everything was supposed to go through Center Drive, and how does that work? Okay? So, planners don't like me to hear me say this, but you can plan all you want, but there's gonna be a certain mass of traffic where you're going into gridlock, and if LA and Chicago can't figure it out, how are we gonna figure out in Little Grand Rapids? So, end of rant or.
Well, I mean, that brings up a good point. How much traffic is going to be sitting on Lake Michigan Drive trying to get into that little circle to go into Chick-fil-A? Are we going to be backing up on Lake Michigan Drive? Because the cars are stacked up all the way in.
Well, and quite honestly, the fact that they have such a long double lane drive-through
Right.
helps us a
Shouldn't-
lot, because
shouldn't, right.
I don't know too many people that would want to get in that line if it was double wide, 50 cars deep, and that's all contained on their site. So anything longer than that might lead out into Lake Michigan Drive, for example, that's a heck of a line, right?
Have you seen the setup they have in Center Point Mall at the parking lot for all the traffic that they have to deal with? I mean, these places are, like you said, it's a cult following. I like them too, but not enough to sit in 55 cars.
Scott, if I could ask, what is the width of that circular drive that they have for the stacking lanes?
The circular, you mean as part of West Town where you come in?
No, on the northeast part of the site, as you go northeast and come back down to the south, where they're stacking their,
How wide are the stacking
I think they
lanes?
started out as 10-foot lanes, and they may have added 1 foot to those after some debate, but Cheryl can certainly answer that when it's her turn to come up and speak to.
okay.
Because we did have a lot of debate about, two trucks, for example, that are side by side. You can't tell trucks they can't use that, and you need sufficient space.
Tricia, Jason is raising his hand in the Zoom as well.
See that?
Looks like he's on now.
Am I on there?
Yay!
Hey, could you ask the applicant when they do their explanation to give a little bit of kind of clarity on that drive-through area? Because I went to the 54th Street, I think, facility, and at the, what I would call, what you have in kind of your figure 2 diagram, it looks like they funnel the vehicles into one lane. So would it be a situation where the cars are only locked kind of in for about 5 cars? Or is it truly the entire blue section?
Yeah, so Jason's talking about like how the McDonald's drive-through is where there are 2 lanes and then they funnel into one for getting the food.
Correct, thank you.
So this is something that I think Justin is going to want to talk about, because for this particular site, I don't think they go down to one lane. They stay a double lane the whole way through.
Yeah, if you're ready.
Yeah, at this point, we'll ask that Cheryl Scales, on behalf of Progressive, make a presentation.
Sure. And I'm going to turn it over to Justin Lurk from Chick-Fil-A. He's going to specifically address the circulation on the site and how it works. This is a new thing for us as well. We can talk about how we used to work and how we're looking to work in the future with the new way that COVID is, and how also he's adapted the current Chick-fil-A's to be able to work with the restaurants closed. So I'll let him go ahead and present that.
Great, can everyone hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you all for letting me join in virtually here, since as a company, we're grounded, we have some time out and grounded for travel for the foreseeable future, so appreciate you letting me join virtually. We're excited to come here, and certainly we put a lot of thought, effort, and certainly a lot of versions into this site design. Trish, I think you did a great explanation of the company as a background. Been around since '67 in the malls. Didn't start building these freestanding units until 1987, and then we built our first unit here in Western Michigan on Kalamazoo Avenue back in January of '17. So certainly have appreciated the response that we've received from the community in Western Michigan, and look forward to giving them a few more options in the area. This being one of those. So as many people have mentioned, this site design is different from the other ones that you see in the area. And the difference is, previously we did design our sites with a dual lane entry that would go up to the dual lane order points to where 2 cars could order at the same time. Right at the end of that red arrow that Trisha has up on the screen now, that's where the order points would be. And traditionally, for the other stores in the market, what you would see is that filtered back down to 1 lane. And that 1 lane went all the way through to the pickup window. And then we had a bypass lane around the pickup window. Well, what we've learned through COVID and the pandemic that we're still in right now, all of our dining rooms are closed. Yet there was still a demand for Chick-fil-A. And so we're designing these sites now going forward. We've got one under construction in Norton Shores that would have this similar layout. And what I mean by that is a dual lane all the way through from the entrance to the drive-through to the exit of the drive-through. And as mentioned, the purpose of that second lane is to give our franchisee owner-operator, and a real quick background, the difference between Chick-fil-A franchisee and some of the other franchisees, if you're selected as a franchisee, you only get 1 location. So people ask, what's your secret sauce? That's our secret sauce. We have the franchisee owner-operator in the store 6 days a week, building the team, managing the store. It can be it's their only sole source of income. So they have a desire to make sure that this site, this building, this operation, the customers are happy so they come back. So again, sole source of income, one location, so they have a vested interest to make sure that this runs smoothly for everyone involved. But as mentioned, the double lane would give that franchisee operator some options for maximum flexibility to use to basically pivot during busy times. So that second lane, it's been discussed that it could be used for, just mobile order pickups. So we've got an app, you can pull up our app, you can order on the app, and then you can drive to our site and you could pick up your food either through the drive-thru, or you could park in a space that would have a dedicated mobile order pickup space. We found through the COVID pandemic, a lot of people chose to do the mobile order, contactless payment, contactless ordering, and would still choose to drive through the drive-thru to pick up their food versus one of the parking spaces and have someone bring it out to you. So the operator could use that second lane as a dedicated mobile order pickup lane. That way, if you do the mobile orders, you still got that value of ordering your food ahead, and then as soon as you get there, it's a quicker in and out of on the site. That's one option. The second option is they could use that second lane during peak hours only. As mentioned, we show 32 cars in the stack right now. That would be a larger stack, as far as our site goes, compared to any of the other 3 locations in the Grand Rapids area, or the 4th one in Holland as well. So we do feel like this site is designed to handle more capacity if it gets there. But as we notice more stores in the market, the honeymoon phase kind of flattens out a little bit, right? So it's not as busy as you give consumers more options in a specific market. So that's the second option. You could use that second lane for peak hours only, and when they're not using it, it could serve as a bypass as well. The third option is they could use that second lane all hours that the store is open. And then the fourth option is they could choose not to use it at all and use it as a bypass lane. The good thing about this design is there's not a barrier between those 2 lanes. So if the lanes aren't used and there is an issue, car stalls or car fire breaks out, God forbid, we could exit the rest of the people from the drive-through via one of those 2 lanes or both lanes. Again, our franchisee operator and the team members are trained to handle situations like that. I can't think of a situation like that we've had in the market since January of 17, based on our 3 or 4 stores that we've got in Western Michigan here. As mentioned, the city doesn't require a bypass lane, it's preferred. We feel like this is kind of the best of both worlds, if you will. Having both lanes all the way around to give flexibility to get cars out if needed. Okay. Signage was mentioned as well, and Tricia appreciates the explanation there. We did propose 4 building signs. I see the recommendation to try to narrow that down to 2. I would ask the planning commission to consider 3 potentially. The north side elevation, the west side elevation, and then as you see in our signage plan, we've got an icon, the chicken head icon that we put over our front door, just signifying, the entrance to the building. And potentially that's also a frontage to the private drive that was referenced as well. So this building is a little unique in the fact that we do have frontage on 3 different roads. So I'd ask to consider 3 signs on the building versus 4. I know parking was a topic. I did look at the site plan. I'm still counting 70 parking spaces as well. I'd be happy to walk through that as well. But that first row in front of the building, we've got 14, including the ADA. And then if you move plan west, there's 2 rows of parking each that have 6, and then another row left of that has 6, so that's 18 more plus the 14. And then at the top of the site plan, we've got 10. And then further west, the angled parking, that's to the, further east, the angled parking east of the drive-through entrance, we have another 12 there. And then we've got 10 on the south property line, and then another 6 that are, I guess they would be perpendicular to the building right near the entrance, the 2 entrances. So I did count 70 there as well, but we felt like 70 is the right amount of parking for this, given the amount of drive-through capability that we would have here as well. Certainly would adhere to Tricia's requirement to work on the architectural renderings and get something prepared and presented to staff that would suit them. You know, we wanted to keep with the intent of what was previously discussed and I guess agreed upon. So Tricia, I don't know when the appropriate time is to pull, if we want to pull something up here to talk about it, or if you want me to explain.
Yeah,
Do
you have that facade drawing that shows the door versus the window?
I do. Do you want me to share my screen?
Yeah.
Okay. Give me 1 second here. Share this. Make sure I'm sharing the right one. Great. And let me know when that pops up.
Yep, just got it.
Okay, so this is probably an eye chart for you, but I will go to the, on the left-hand side, we have the original agreed upon elevations, and on the right-hand side, we've got the proposed elevations. So I'll talk about each elevation one by one and just the key differences here. So previously, what was approved, as Tricia mentioned, the drive-through window. This is our drive-through elevation that would face west. And then we had a different colored brick that would emulate windows. Just last week, our design team came out with a new design that shows louvers, and we wanted to bring that new design to this building as well. So instead of using the tan brick to kind of frame out what would look like a window, because this is our kitchen area, we wanted to put the new design of the louvers here, so we're just swapping those out. So the only key difference in this elevation is the drive-through window to the drive-through door. And this is a new design for our buildings going forward as well. Norton Shores will have this drive-through door. And let me talk about that real quick because it is a 3-compartment door, and I'm gonna go to the actual elevations to where you can see this in a little bit larger scale as well. Okay. But the purpose of the drive-through door is that there are 3 compartments to the door, and it would slide open left and right to where our team members could wait in the building safely as cars come around the building. So right now, if you've got a drive-through window and you go through during busy times, you'll likely notice team members standing on the outside of the drive-through window, waiting for the cars to come around the building, and then they're servicing the car at the window and maybe a car behind the window or 2 cars behind the window. This drive-through door allows the team members to stand inside, gather the food, and then walk out to service the cars during busy times. But the 3 compartments, it's designed to where the bottom could still close and you can still operate it as a window as well. The top compartment, the middle compartment, and the bottom compartment will all slide open if it's utilized as a door. If it's utilized as a window, just this middle compartment would slide open. So just wanted to distinguish that as well. And again, we felt like the design of the louvers is a better look than just framing the windows out with the brick. So similar on the front elevation, which would be our east elevation. The only change here is just changing from the brick that is framed out to the louvers. So I'll pop back over to the side-by-side comparisons. You can see that they're the same as well. We kept the same tower heights that we agreed upon last time. So it's really just the louvers on each elevation and the drive-through door versus the window on the top elevation. There's no changes on the elevation that would face north, And then for our service yard door, the only changes again are the louvers. So we feel like this is a more cohesive design. And as you can see, our signage, we don't feel like our signage is designed to be in your face. It's more designed to fit the architectural features of the building. So what we would be proposing here, if you would so oblige, is to remove the elevation off of the south, or move the signage off of the south elevation. Keep these two signs, this one facing north, this one facing west, and then have our icon over the front door. I think I hit all of the questions. Obviously, we would conform to the landscaping and make sure that the DDA and the CDA are good with that. If we're building during a time where, as Tricia mentioned, the landscaping is not going to be fully grown, we're amenable to posting a bond for that. And I think I hit all of the questions. If not, I'd be happy to answer any further questions.
Thank you, Justin. Any questions concerning his presentation? Justin, if I could, you mentioned in some of your stores where they would use the two lanes for pickup, you would do so during the peak times. Do you have a typical peak time as you look at different localities throughout the community, the United States, or does it vary according to the area of the country?
Sure. You know, breakfast isn't a huge busy time for us in the north. You know, where we first started growing in the south, breakfast is pretty big, but it just hasn't caught on here in the north. So I wouldn't really call any of our morning hours of peak time. If you've got a pinpoint one, probably between the 7 and 8 o'clock hour would be a peak time in the morning. For lunch, around that 11 to 1 would be the peak hours for the lunch rush, if you will. Getting people from their office buildings, come to the site, grab the food, go back, or if our dining room is open, choose to come in and eat in there. And then our evening peak hours would be between 5 and 7 p.m.
Okay.
And if I can just,
And then as you could see here, safety is a big concern for us as well. So, you know, Tricia had asked as well, since this is a new design, we currently don't have any locations open with this design of a dual drive-through lane. As mentioned, it was filtered down to one lane right at this point. Traditionally, you just carry this one lane through the drive-through and have a little bypass around the drive-through. So this is a new concept for us. All 65 stores that we have under construction right now, where space allowed us to, we were able to pick up this second drive-through lane. So with this being our drive-through door, it lines up with the window to this car here, and we've got a crosswalk for team members to cross in front of that car. And then as you can see, we have a striped landing zone, if you will, to where our team members could safely walk up and down this landing zone if there were cars in the second lane as well. So what this allows our team to do is service 2, 4, 6, potentially even 8 cars at once, bringing food out of the window or the door and servicing 8 cars at once. I don't know if that can actually ever physically happen, but that's what it would allow us to do. Again, you know, designed to give the operator maximum flexibility to get cars on and off the lot efficiently. And again, with the capability of stacking 50 cars on our site, on our lot, you know, within our property line, this is certainly the largest location that we would have in the area. No other locations that we have in the area would allow us to do that without blocking up another road. So this is a unique feature of this design as well. And we feel like that would serve us well in this market as well.
We have one of our commissioners is offline right now, but he'd like to raise a question. Jason?
Okay?
Okay, there I am. Yeah, when you mute the whole thing, then I can't unmute myself.
Well, I don't have the whole thing muted. I did at first, but I don't anymore. So I'm not sure what's happening.
My question for Justin is, how big is that canopy that's there where the team members would come out of the facility with the door? And then where I'm trying to go with this, I'm just trying to gather the size of it, and then what's the safety of the person coming in and out with moving cars right there?
Sure, so the canopy over our pickup window or pickup door, it covers almost the full car at the window or door. So it doesn't go all the way across that first lane, but it would go 4 cars back. So on the lane closest to the building, would you want me to share my screen to kind of show as well? Help.
Yeah, that would probably be helpful.
Hopefully that doesn't mute you, Jason. Okay, so you see the dash line here? That would represent the canopy over the pickup window. So it's meant to cover this first car, this second car, this third car, and this fourth car. And as I mentioned, similar to this walkway in between the lanes, we have a walkway designed for team members here as well to service those 4 cars. So that's why you see this lane being 25 feet wide. We've got 3 feet here in between the lanes, 2 feet here, and 10-foot lanes for the cars as well.
Is that employee walkway, is that a raised level, or is that just level with the parking? I mean,
No, it's flush.
it's flush, so
painted,
it's not
paint
not
stripe,
raised, okay.
so
I
they
just
don't
wondered
trip.
if a car hit a curb and stopped
Right,
and hitting a person.
or someone tripping.
Yep.
Correct.
Jason, do you have any other questions?
Maybe that means I'm going to stop sharing again.
Yeah, I couldn't talk there. No, I was just trying to gather that if that canopy had actually gone to that lane where the team members are walking, so that columns would provide some protection, but I didn't see any of the columns or anything like that.
Now, to be fully transparent there, Jason, I know the design team is talking about a solution to have a canopy extend over and cover that second lane, but we don't have anything right now. By the time we go under construction, potentially, so I could see that being a future option with, as you mentioned, columns in that walkway that would provide a natural barrier as well. But right now, that's not a finalized design on our end.
I just had one thing I wanted to point out. Because we have such beautiful visibility on this corner, and we're totally inward with all our traffic, that a person could come by, they could drive by the outside circle, or they could drive by Lake Michigan and Wilson and see that it's too crowded and not come in, or they could come in, go around the circle, come by past and decide not to come in and go totally around the site. So we have a lot of options for people to decide that they don't want to come to the site. Most people that go there decide they want to be there, and I can say that at the 28th Street site where that spills out into the parking lot, that is about, I was in one of those, and it was about 8 cars behind the order spot. The 8 cars behind the order spot is about the enter location of where we have the 2 lanes. So just to kind of give you a perspective, all that stuff that's spilling out on 28th Street would be contained in that laneage area.
Thank you. Justin, you mentioned in your options, one of those to be dedicating the outside lane as for mobile orders. What's your experience thus far on the mobile orders in terms of volume?
Ask the latter part of your question one more time. I didn't hear the last part.
Okay, you mentioned that mobile order, using that dedicated outside lane dedicated for mobile orders. How much of your business is going that way right now?
So right now, during the pandemic, we have seen a big shift go that way. It's not massive. I guess fortunate for us, we have a mobile app prior to COVID. I know some retailers are trying to develop that right now and roll it out. But traditionally, the bulk of our customers are still using the drive-through lane since they can't go inside a restaurant right now. I don't have a percentage of mobile orders to just traditional drive-through right now. And I would even hate to guess what that is, but I know it has grown this past year. We were hoping to get, I think, where we're seeing the volume now in the next few years, but I think the COVID pandemic kind of accelerated the use of the mobile order app.
Okay, thank you. In terms of your, you mentioned that you have order takers north of the building with as the stacking lanes form. How does that work?
I think I heard the question, mobile order takers, right? Was
Yes.
that the question?
Yes.
Yeah, Justin, yeah, he asked
During
how they
peak
work.
hours, we've got a canopy over the mobile order, we've got a canopy over the order points that would cover, again, another 6 cars here. But during peak hours, the operator, would send employees out to this area with iPads, and instead of just waiting for these cars to place an order, they could be taking orders from all 6 cars at once to, again, prevent cars from stacking off of our site and blocking up a private drive or a public street. Fortunately, we don't have traffic that would block off a public street here. It would come into private drive, but that's the goal of that mobile order taking, is to just contain the cars on our site during the peak hours.
And they
So,
also
more
also
orders
take
at
payment.
once, and then it allows the people at the pickup window to deliver more orders at once as well.
Yeah, and they also can take your credit card there too, so you can get it done like that.
Okay.
Absolutely. So they can take the order up here,
At the
take
window.
your payment, and then once you get up to the pickup window or door, your food is ready and handed to you, and then you can safely exit the lot.
And you can pay with cash at the window.
Okay, had some discussion about this. Before I guess we go any further on that, this is a public hearing. If we can open the hearing, please.
Make a motion to open the public hearing.
Support.
Motion by Steve, supported by Tyler to open the public hearing. All those in favor say that. Aye. Aye. Those opposed, same sign. Motion carried. Any comments to offer? Okay,
Motion to close public hearing.
Support.
motion by Steve, supported by Tyler to close the public hearing. All those in favor indicate by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed, same sign. Motion carried.
I'll make my comments. Signage, I agree with the 3 signs. We've done this in several other places. One of them's Bigby on Alpine there in front of the old Lear plant. We let them put a sign on the back because it faces another road. We also did it out north of Meyer and Standale on some of those there, so I don't have a problem with that, especially with just a little chicken head. The bypass, I don't think we can argue about it. The city's ordinances do not require this escape lane, and police and fire have both expressed that they do not have any grave concerns with the lack of an escape lane. Thus, it would be difficult to disapprove solely on that fact that a plan that is designed without one. If we want an escape lane, put it in the ordinance. I would prefer an escape lane. When Taco Bell put one in there, great. But by right, they don't have to have escape lane.
Yeah, it's not a specific standard to do. To go
Right.
by. That being said, I'd like to ask Scott, you've heard the description of their various options and how to circulate through the site. Does that give you any comfort or not?
Well, there's certainly some comforts here with the fact that like all the stacking is interior. You know, I know if there was a dramatic type issue, like they said, their staff is trained for it. But, you know, my job is to look at public safety first and foremost before all else. I think that's almost written right into the professional engineer's creed. So I'm going to tell you the truth, whether I like chicken biscuits a lot or not. And, you know, we'd prefer to see a bypass lane. But all we can do at this point is make the recommendation. I do think you have a little bit more freedom to look at safety. But, you know, again, there's a lot of factors at play here, and I don't want to sour your personal opinions as you represent the city as planning commissioners.
Okay.
I have a comment. I tend to agree with Tyler in that he's right. It isn't a firm requirement, and I also would comment that it's something of a trade-off in that I have seen how busy these Chick-fil-A's get. I have for when the back in 2017 when that first one opened, we had an actual. I take that way to work every day, and the highway was backed up. Going to that site. There was actual traffic stopped on the highway trying to get off that exit to go to the Chick-fil-A.
I did that also. I was stupid.
So the traffic generation is very real, and I think we are making a trade-off to push more of that traffic through that site more quickly, and to prevent it from getting backed up to Lake Michigan Drive or otherwise. So while I would like to see the bypass lane, I also benefit from the Taco Bell edition of the bypass lane. I've also seen how efficiently the Chick-fil-A operation gets those cars through that drive-through. It's like nothing I've ever seen before in any other place. And I think they've spoken to that in how they make an effort to get the food out to people who are not at the front of the line so that when that first person goes, the rest of the lane unstacks more quickly, and also on the order taking side. So while I do understand the benefits of the bypass lane, and I would generally advocate for it, I don't think it's a point where I would stop. I think I would still support the project without it, in that I think there are some other benefits that we get from the existing design.
Well, I'm also an engineer like Scott, and I am pretty passionate, what do you want to call it, about a bypass lane. I used to go to the Myers Pharmacy on Alpine where you could get hooked in 5 cars, and I didn't like that. And I can't imagine sitting in, I wouldn't go to this Chick-fil-A if I couldn't get out. The other thing that we need to bring up, I think, is the lack of parking. We had a applicant across the street 2 weeks ago that had all kinds of parking, and we thought he had too much. Now we have one that's not even meeting the requirements, and we all know what these places are like. So where are these people gonna go? Are they gonna go to the stores next door? I got a problem with the parking, and I got a problem with the lack of a bypass lane. I mean, it's way too long, in my humble opinion. I also made an observation, that door for the team members going outside and walking across, that might work in Florida, but in January, I wouldn't want to be that team member walking and slipping on the snow. It's your business, it's your business model, but I would not let my son or daughter work in a location like that where you're walking between cars and that kind of stuff. And my favorite bugaboo, the truck template, you were gonna back semis into this place? That's what the template shows.
Any other impressions, comments?
We like the organization, we like the way they're run, we want them here in our community. We got a better site for them?
I'll jump in on that because we've had many discussions over the last 3-4 years. And, you know, we've steered them to a lot of different places. I think the beauty here was that it's a blank slate. And, you know, one of the things we asked was, you know, these property lines aren't set in stone, they can be moved around. But I think, you know, their answer was they're comfortable with the situation the way it is. So I think that's a good question to ask them if that was something that you felt strongly about.
And I think in that regard, one of the initial layouts here showed the site as it was superimposed over the lot layout, and this takes up lot 2, and it actually spills into what was originally lot 1. And I have some question about whether the remainder is of sufficient size to be able to support another user there. My thought is that they'll probably come up with something that would fit it in, but it's not the full size as it was originally laid out for the lot number 1. Now, again, in Justin's introduction and description of this, he identified 4 options. And one of the options, option number 4, was to use that outside lane as a bypass lane. And so I think we have to weigh that into consideration. I think it would be responsive to the concerns raised by the city engineer. I think rightfully so. Traffic safety is very important. And but the trade-off there would be a stacking of up to 50 cars within this site. But they'd have some of the other measures that they mentioned as well at their disposal. The mobile order option that would help out perhaps. Again, I'm not clear on where on the site that would be accomplished if it weren't through the drive-through lane. Justin made an allusion to where that might be, but I guess I'd have to get better detail on that. So they are, in effect, as I view it, the comments, are considering an option for just having one stacking lane and a bypass lane around it, or I guess a variation on that would be to have double stacking to a point where you see that with other drive-through establishments, and then at a certain point skinning it down to one lane. So you've got more capacity than just a single lane of 50, but there's also gives people an opportunity to escape, get that escape lane further back into the site as well. With respect to the parking, Tom, you raised a good point. That is one of the PUD benefits that they've asked for. And again, that's where, one, it's a PUD benefit. We possess the authority to grant that or not. But likewise, there's conversation about, well, is this site big enough to accommodate everything? If that were expanded a little bit more to the east, perhaps they could provide the on-site parking to meet that requirement. And one last thing I wanted to highlight, the point that Tom raised as far as the safety for those that would be filling the orders, especially during the winter time, if there is a dual lane in that area. And again, safety is a key to this. So we've got some options here, and as opposed to being straight up or straight down, we've got some options on how to address this. Jason, you're out there. Do you have any comments that you'd like to add to the discussion?
times, especially during the initial, what Justin referred to as the honeymoon phase, where train gets stacked up pretty heavy with the 2 lanes, but also their movement through there tends to be pretty fast. And then I think that it'll probably open up the opportunity where it can go down to a single lane there over time. So those are my own comments on that. The signage, I'm fine with the 3 that were indicated. And parking spots, I think I'm comfortable at the 70.
Justin, you still on the line?
I am.
Is it fair to say that, as you listed the 4 options, that 4th option did include, instead of having 2 stacking lanes, that you could work with 1, but like I say, a modification of that would perhaps to allow for 2 up to a point, and then skinning it down to 1 to allow people that escape option.
So that would be the 4th option that I talked about, as you mentioned, where the operator could, use the orange cones and come off that outside lane and utilize it as a bypass. With us not having these open and operating right now with all of our dining rooms closed, I know my specific Chick-Fil-A that I frequent near my house, no one's parking, no one's going in, since our dining rooms are closed, they temporarily use, set up 2 lanes to take the orders and 2 lanes to fill it. And I've had nothing but great experiences there. So, again, I think the key to remember here is that this franchisee owner operator, this is his or her sole source of income. And their main goal is to serve everyone with a warm meal and a warm smile and good customer service and care. So if you have a bad experience, you're not going to want to come back, right? So it's just, we're built around the customer service model, and that's why we designed the site the way we have, to give that operator maximum flexibility to pivot as the day gets busy or as the day slows down, and use that second lane as a bypass lane when needed. But I will say this, being, having our first store in Grand Rapids South since, January 17, and then opening up at 54th and 131, a month later, and then opening up at 20th and Beltline and Holland, in the last 3.5 years, I can't think of a circumstance where we had an issue in our drive-through lane where someone was stuck or there was an emergency. I do, we take safety as a top priority as well, but I can't think of a circumstance in any of these stores where that has become an issue. I mentioned our franchisee operators, our employees are trained to, clear out those drive-through lanes if something were to happen.
Several times it's been mentioned safety in the drive-through. How fast are these people going in the drive-through? I'm just curious they're going 2 miles an hour, maybe. So, safety is an issue, but also you go to the drive-in place, I just lost the name of it, and they bring your stuff out to your car. They're taking the chance of getting run over while they're running out to your car too. So, it's their responsibility.
But you guys feel more comfortable at Taco Bell with a bypass lane, so.
My feelings don't matter.
Yeah, well.
Again, are we here? This applicant wants to follow the ordinances, wants to follow the rules, and we're saying no. Or you're saying no. They want to follow the rules.
They don't have enough parking spaces.
Well, then vote against parking spaces.
My point is, I'm not gonna argue with you, Tyler.
Okay.
You don't argue with the ordinance.
Okay.
It's just that we're getting hung up on them following the ordinance.
Okay.
I say again, change the ordinance. It's not up to us to sit here and argue about an ordinance that's already there.
All right. And are we at a point where anyone is ready to offer a motion on this?
if I could offer one more bit of information that would help. I know there's some discussion about parking spaces, but you know, our business is about split down the middle between drive-through and parking, where it's a little, you know, probably heavier weighted on some of the other businesses for parking. So we do feel like this is a good balance from parking spaces to opportunities to go through the drive-through. If you do experience a full lot, you still got the ability to go through a drive-through. So there's a few options here. And at the end of the day, if both are full, then you may have to find another location, you know, in the market or come back at another time. But we appreciate all the comments and all the considerations, and just thankful for your time.
Thank you.
I'll offer up a motion. Case number 20-869, motion for Chick-fil-A final area site plan. I make a motion to approve the final area site plan for the Chick-fil-A restaurant project located at 320 Wilson Avenue, also known as Lot C2 of the Westtown Commercial PUD, as it does meet the standards set forth in the City of Walker zoning ordinances. Conditions of final area site plan approval. The applicant agrees to all items in the planning director's report dated August 24th, 2020. We have the amendment to 3 signs as stated. Number 2, the applicant shall address all items in the city engineer's report dated August 25th. Findings of fact, the final area site plan conforms to the current and proposed City of Walker master plan. The final area site plan is in compliance with the approved Westtown commercial preliminary site plan. The plan complements existing uses in the area.
Support. Motion and a support.
Did we want to incorporate the added condition to have the applicant work with staff?
Yes, I didn't know that was not in there. I thought,
No, I added it in my presentation.
yes, incorporate that also.
We have a motion by Tyler, supported by Steve. Any discussion? Everybody clear on the motion? All those in favor indicate by saying aye. Aye.
Yes.
Those opposed, same sign. Aye. Motion carries.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Cheryl.
Thanks, Cheryl.
I know.
Scott, you